What's going on, guys? Maker Mods here, back at it again with another new video. Today we're going to be taking a look at a new tactile switch that's made by Durock, the Cerulean. There isn't too much information about these Ceruleans online other than the fact that they are sold at a couple places like Canon Keys, Desk Hero, and My Keyboard in Europe. The Canon Keys webpage says that they feature blue tinted full nylon housing with internal gold accents. It's an appealing new look with a familiar MX Clear like tactile stem. I've reviewed another switch that's supposed to have an MX Clear like stem or an Ergo Clear stem, that is the Kinetic Labs Penguin. So I wanted to do a quick comparison of the two. So when comparing the stems of the Penguin and the Cerulean's tactile leg seems to jut out slightly more. I think that means there would be a little more preload on the tactile leaf itself because it's already contacting the leaf from the moment that you depress the switch. It should also mean that there's a slightly sharper tactility. When I compare the switch feel, the Penguin has a more rounded tactility, whereas the Cerulean's is a little more abrupt and it's a little sharper as well. Now keep in mind that the spring weights on these are different as well. This is a 67 gram spring and this is a 65 gram spring, so that will change. I did some testing and on the Cerulean, the 65 gram is a bottom out weight. It actuates at somewhere around 50 grams or so. I couldn't find a force diagram about this switch. There really isn't that much information other than the page that we just saw. Interestingly, it looks like there's some type of Cerulean Linear switch that started interest check, but there hasn't been too much information. With I think what's supposed to be a polycarbon nylon housing with a palm stem. Looks really different from this full nylon switch with a palm stem. To be honest, I really like the look of this switch. It does have pretty colors and the blue tint I think would look really nice in a wide variety of boards. Talking about the rest of the specs, the switch, it has a full nylon housing with a palm stem and a gold-plated 65 gram bottom out spring, like I mentioned before. It is a 5-pin tactile, but you can always cut off the 2 pins with a flush cutter if your PCB is plate mount. There is some factory lube. I noticed factory lube on both the stem sliders as well as on the tactile legs. I also saw some lube on the top housing where the slider kind of rests. There was also some lube on the bottom housing, once again on the slider rails. The lube that I saw was a very shiny, oily type lube. It wasn't too viscous and it was pretty easy to spread. It looks like some type of spray lube application, although I'm no expert. And it was very slight, I have to say. I didn't notice too much loss in tactility after I used some solvent to take the lube off the tactile legs. Now normally I don't like to lube legs. I don't like lubed legs, but in this case, it was very slight and I didn't really notice too much of a difference. Here's a sound test with GMK Keycap. For comparison, here is Kinetic Labs Penguin with the GMK Keycap. With the same pressure, I noticed that the Penguin was actually significantly louder, but it was also a little deeper, so it kind of depends on what you like. Let's go to the typing test. Yeesh. Next, we're going to do the same test. I just realized I'm on a DESKMAT. I'm not going to swap out all my switches again to non-lubed and filmed, but I'll do the test again. So what do I think about the Durock Cerulean? I like the switch. Let's talk about some of the pros and cons. First, it looks absolutely phenomenal, right? I mean, it looks really good. It catches the RGB really well. And I like the feel of it. To be completely honest, I think I might actually like the feel of the switch stock to lubed and filmed. Although it does sound a little clackier, I think on this switch, the tolerances are pretty good. And so when you film the switch, it raises it in like a weird way. I personally like the feel of the stock typing test more than the lubed and film test. Or I should say the film test, because the stock one is lubed as well, right? I didn't add too much lube, so I don't really think that the lube itself would have impacted the feel that much. As far as the tactility goes, kind of what we were talking about earlier about the stem, it's a pretty abrupt tactility. And it feels like it's got about a 2 to 2.5 millimeter bottom out. So like a post travel, I guess. So you've got that initial tactility, and then there's a pretty decent length, there's a pretty decent post travel. So how does it compare to the Penguin in terms of push feel? The Penguin has a slightly rounder tactility. The Cerulean has sharp in the beginning, and then it kind of gets very cushy, and I would say it feels like a kind of like a slower return. Now I'm not talking like the stuck stem issue with ergo clears, but it just feels like a very slow switch, if that makes sense. Even as I was typing, it wasn't too snappy. And I mean, it is a lighter spring, I guess. It's a 65 gram bottom out, 50 gram actuation. So it's a little lighter than I'm used to, especially with Tactiles. I prefer 67 grams at a minimum. So maybe I'll try spring swapping these. My Penguins, you know, for comparison, those were 67 gram Penguins. So overall, I like the switch. I mean, I like how the switch looks. Aesthetics is always important, right? The feel is definitely interesting. It's a little different than what I'm used to, but it's not bad. And remember what I always say, guys. Switch feel and what you like in a switch is so subjective that what you like may be completely different from what I like, and vice versa. However, one thing that I do have to say is, in the value for money category, these switches are a little bit on the expensive side. Now, they do work out to about 70 cents a switch. There are a lot of newer switches coming out from TechC and other manufacturers that are averaging out at about 60 cents a switch. And so that 10 cent a switch premium may not sound like much, but if you're filling a 60% board, you're looking at, you know, an extra $6. That's shipping, right? So it definitely starts to add up. If this switch was a little more competitively priced, I think it would be a really great switch. As it stands right now, I would definitely recommend it if you're in the market for an ergo clear like Tactile with a pretty cushy, it feels like a Holy Panda but with a little less tactility. The Holy Panda has a very large round tactility. The Cerulean has slightly less tactility, but it's still like a similar roundness. So if I'd imagine the force curve of a Holy Panda to be like pretty tactile, and then it kind of like rounds out, this one would be less tactile, but it would still have a similar rounding motion. So overall, I like the switch. I think it sounds pretty good. The nylon definitely leads to a more muted characteristic. So if you don't like the clackiness of mechanical keyboards, then this would be a great option. They remind me almost of my Xylens and how quiet they are. And that's really good, right? I mean, you heard the sound test with the Penguin. If anything, I'm pushing the Cerulean harder than the Penguin, like twice as hard as the Penguin, and yet the Penguin to my ear sounds much ringier. It has a lot more sound to it. So yeah, I mean, that's gonna be it for me today, guys. I'm super tired. I'm gonna try to edit this video and post it up before midnight. It's already almost 11, so wish me luck. But anyways, as you're watching this, just remember, I love you. Thank you so much for just tuning in, spending a little part of your day with me. Really appreciate it. And yeah, I'm MakerMods, and I'll catch you in the next video. Three, two, one. What's going on, guys? MakerMods here. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Cerulean tactile switch that's made by Durock for Canon keys. Does that make sense?